Today, I have the honor and the privilege of having another conversation with Janet Sizzle from Basic Organization. And before we get into the topic, I want you guys to subscribe, click on the subscribe button, and comment. Comment is very, very useful. And of course, I'm going to be sharing with you a number of resources that Janet Chisel has put together from Basic Organization. You will also find her information, her contact information, etc., at the end of this video. So without further ado, Janet Chisel. Good morning, Janet.
Hi, Adrienne, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I wanted to, without these things going on, we had 365 plus days of unnormalcy, like I call it, unusual times. And I thought that we should cover today the fact that kids have been living at home, they've been living with their parents. Many instances, their parents are working at home. And we talk about their spaces, etc. But I wanted to destine today our conversation on kids, their kids' spaces, how to organize them, and how to bring them on board to be part of the process.
Okay, great. Yes, probably in March, everybody all of a sudden, their kids came home and they were doing online learning. And what I found is the talk was, well, we can get through the rest of the year. They were just focused on getting through the rest of the year. This was so, life-changing for really everybody. So they did the best they could do. And then over the summer, there might have been a little bit more relaxed situation. But then in September, September, they started to realize like, oh, this is going to go on. This is going to be a whole school year.
Right.
So again, like at the very beginning, people just tried to set up a laptop and get on to do online learning or to get to work. But now they're starting to think like, that didn't really go so well in the spring. So how can I make the best effort? And we're still in the middle of that. There's some kids that are doing some hybrid, or some people have gone back. But what I'm hearing from people is a lot of people are, their employers are realizing that they can go ahead and continue to work at home, or at least on a semi-regular basis, work from home. And they didn't have a regular home office that's set up. They didn't have a place where they could plan on sitting and spending 8 hours a day and really being productive. So a lot of people are looking towards that. But you want the same for your kids, right?
Exactly.
They need a place where they can sit down and focus on schoolwork, and then also at the end of the day, get up and walk away from it. So
I'm going to interrupt you there for a second. You
yeah.
just touched upon something that I think is key. Contrary to parents, when you go to work, you go to work. When you come home, you come home. In the perfect world, work has ended. For kids, it's the opposite, because even though they might be going to school, they're coming back home to do homework. So that's one of the reasons why I was so interested in talking about kids' spaces today, because they have to have the possibility of working at school, but also the possibility of working at home. That doesn't go away with COVID.
Yeah, the lines have really been crossed, and everybody, but especially kids, really like structure. So think back to when your kids were in-person school, or when you were in school, and what kind of structures did the teachers set up, and try to emulate that. So again, just like you said, if you have the space, have a separate area where they do their school work, and that's away from the rest of the house, so that they're not eating their meals and doing school at the kitchen table. If you have even more space, don't even make their school area in their bedroom, because then it's still always there around them. So again, a way to just separate, so there can
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah, and then you have to structure. So if you had a structure for the after school, at the end of the school day before, so once they got home, did they do chores? Did they have a routine? You want to stick with that if it's working, but we're all spending 24 hours a day in the house. So go ahead and add to that, because we were just talking before you hit record. Nobody wants to sit still for, 6, 7, 8 hours a day
Right.
in a desk chair. So
Hmm.
when they get up to take breaks, have them do something productive around the house that they can have responsibility for, and will just help out the whole family. So things like, depending on your child's age, and your children best, things like watering plants or feeding the pets, or bringing their laundry basket down, doing laundry for older kids, letting them do laundry. So again, it's just something where they get up and they move around the house with purpose, instead of like heading straight for the refrigerator, or plopping themselves in front of the TV. It's something that, again, you can be a well-oiled machine in your house if everybody has a few responsibilities, and then as the parents, you need to check and make sure those chores got done, because
Right. So
you
can
know
you tell me a little bit about how would you go about organizing, let's just say that you found the space in the basement or in a third bedroom or in an attic, etc., that you wanted to set up for the kids, to be like their
your
study
school
area,
area.
their school area. What are some of the key elements that you would include?
Yeah. So really, some of it will depend on your child, so you know your child best.
Hmm.
So think about your child. Did your child sit at the kitchen table to do homework before? That probably means that they want someplace to sit with a table and chairs, and not, they don't want to lounge on the sofa. Okay, which it could be okay if that's what your child want, if that's where they can be productive, great. So find that, but also consider, if your child was one that sat at the kitchen table, maybe it was because they liked people around and they
Right.
focus better with kind of that background noise. That's great. But if set up someplace where their siblings, or you're in the room next door doing your work, and so you can kind of have that background noise for each other. Whatever is going to work for them. But you want to supply them with all the supplies they need. So,
Mhm.
of course, older kids, it's a laptop, and it's probably, just about it. But the younger kids, what I'm hearing from teachers that teach young elementary ages, they're still trying to do kind of the hands-on tactile work that you do in first grade, in a
Mhm.
classroom.
Right.
So again, it's going to be a little more work, or a little more homework for your child on that part, because the teacher's probably telling you, well, you need these things today, go find them in your house, which is great, which is great. It gets the kids active and focused on the schoolwork, because what I'm hearing is, kids are having a hard time. They're just not
Right.
used to trying to focus and learn for hours a day off of a computer.
Right. And that one other thing that I've heard, through the grapevine, clients of mine or friends of mine, is taking out the computers from their rooms. And you have hit on the nail on the head when, as an organizer, you're very clear in saying spaces should have a purpose. And so if you want your kids to study, you have to create a study space. If you want your kids to sleep, they go to the bedroom. If you want them to eat, there is a dining room table. So I like that structure that you
Right.
mentioned. And it's funny that friends of mine are going like, I took the computer out of the bedroom because they weren't being productive. They were playing around, which is what they were accustomed to doing when they came home from school and they had a computer in the bedroom.
Yeah.
It was like, let's kill the homework and let's just maybe sit around and play games with my friends. So, and inadvertently, they took measures into their own hands to do that, but their solution wasn't like you put it. In essence, the key here is structure. Kids need structure like we do.
Exactly. And let me, in the same thing, you got to think about, your in-person learning. When your kids were in school, that's where they got a lot of their social interaction in the day. And so especially older kids come home, and all they do is scroll on their phone all afternoon, and you think, oh, they're in front of a screen again. But
Right.
what you have to really consider is they've missed that social interaction, and still you can't like gather all their friends together these days. So try to eat all your meals as a family or most of your meals as a family and talk with them and then go for walks or have a project out in your yard or something in your house that everybody or one child and one parent or whatever can participate on so that they're doing something other than just school on the internet and then sitting on the internet after school.
That's a great idea. I think, uh, since the dynamics have changed, why not find a positive venue for that dynamic change, which is, I love it. I see parents walking with their kids, no iPad, no iPhone in hand, and talking. That is new to me. It's like,
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And so
Yes.
I think that within the unusual time, there have been some positivity brought into this spectrum. And I think parents are now forced to, have more conversations with their children, interact more with their children. And you hit something that I think was key is the kids need that because they don't have that interaction with their friends. So the fact that you're close, you're bodily close to them, I think is also important. It has a psychological effect on them.
Yes. Yeah. And so hopefully when this is all over, which is, hopefully will be soon,
Mhm.
we can really identify the positive aspects of what went on in our household. And they're going to be different for everybody, but to try to incorporate some of those positive aspects. So again, maybe you are eating meals a lot more often because all together because somebody's not out at practice somewhere or at a friend's house or you're not at work with a late meeting or something. So try to incorporate that if you found like you really got a lot of benefit out of it, or again taking a walk with your child and or a bike ride if that is something that you've been able to do now and you really felt like it really benefited you, you really want to try to incorporate those positives. We've got to learn something out of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I also wanted to touch upon a subject, regarding all these unusual times, which was, in real estate, the way of doing business for me changed. We were introduced to virtual open houses. A lot of our pre-qualification of clients, buyers and sellers was done online. They didn't want to see us in person, and we didn't want to see them either because at the beginning of COVID, there was so much uncertainty. Things have changed, and we adapt with masks and gloves and booties and things like that. But in essence, the way we do business has changed. I still do a lot of Zoom to pre-qualify a buyer. They don't show up with 10 Zillow pages saying, I want to see these 10 properties. No, no, no. Let's narrow it down. So to me, that's been extremely positive. So my question to you is what has happened to your organizing business? You're a hands-on person. You come
Very
in
much.
with your crew and you take care of it. Now, I know that the real estate market suffered a slowing down at the beginning of COVID, but then it picked up. But a lot of my clients have been living in their home forever and need to declutter. So how are you handling your services in these unusual times?
Thanks for asking. So we did shut down in the spring when things were just very, up in the air. And no one really knew what to think. And then we did reopen, and our thing has been minimizing risk. So we do mask up and we wear gloves if necessary. We stop and wash our hands and everything. What I've seen is, so we are going into clients' homes and doing hands-on work with them. What I'm seeing is a lot more clients are willing to open their door to us, maybe spend 10 minutes talking about what they would like done, and then they leave the room
Okay.
and we do the work. We do check-ins throughout the appointment to say like, well, this is my idea for this. What do you think? And then they can leave again. And I think it's two factors. I think it's one, the safety, and two, a lot of people are seeing that they want to make a change in their house. They're at home working. Wow, my organizer could come in and just do the work while I'm here and I can still be productive with my work. and just, taking a couple of breaks. So it's different. We also do offer what we call virtual organizing. So it would be on a call just like this, a
Wonderful.
Zoom call, where you would show me your, with the camera on your laptop, the space you want to work on. We would talk about what, kind of strategize on what your goal is and how to do it. And
Mhm.
then we leave the call, you do the work, and we check in later at the end of the day, and we discuss, what was your challenges, what worked, let me see the space. Oh, that looks great, but I think this, what do you think about this? And then, so it allows you the benefit of our expertise, but you're doing it on your own. And of course, we charge accordingly. We're not with
Of
you the
course.
whole time. And then the last thing is during COVID, I developed a subscription service. So it is, you can subscribe for a month at a time, a 6-month subscription, or we have a year subscription. And
Okay.
it is a text message that comes to you every weekday morning with an organizing activity. So, I mean, in the 16 years I've been in business, I've always talked to people about, well, I'm pretty organized. I just don't know where to start, or I just don't know how to do it, or I'm afraid to pull everything out and spend hours and hours doing this instead of working in small chunks. So each daily message, it tells you, suggests an activity to do, and they should take you about 15 minutes.
That's wonderful,
Yeah.
because I think also, I run into this time and time again with clients that want to move. It's like the first place they want to tackle is the kitchen and the master. And I'm going like, why would you do that? These are the two main spaces that you're going to be using every day. Why
Right.
don't you start with the guest bedroom or the attic
Absolutely.
or the basement? And
Yeah, you're
so
down to
I
best
really
compliance.
think that I like your structure. I like the
Yeah.
fact that
Oh, thank
on
you.
a weekly basis, they get something that is not going to turn into something overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you want is see, oh, I've got an hour, let me start this. And then an hour goes by, and then you're like, oh my goodness, it's, the space has exploded and I can't get back to it for another week. It's very small activities. And each week is focused on one space. So by the end of the week, you have a more organized space, but you haven't, pulled everything out and gone
There
crazy
you
again
go.
right at the beginning. But you're absolutely right. The clients that we work with are downsizing. You don't touch the rooms you live in. You work on the other spaces, because
Mhm.
those other spaces probably have stuff that you haven't seen in a really long time. It's also easier to make decisions on those things usually. Now, if you're in your kitchen and you identify that, I am not taking this pot with me, or this set of dishes, you can get rid of those, quickly, if the decision is for sure, and you've identified that. But there's no reason to do a review of every single item in a space that you're using, because
Right.
that's going to
And
change.
just to circle back to the element of kids, do you incorporate kids' activities in these
And these,
different
so
weekly?
we organize kids. I believe the youngest child I've worked with was 7, and she was fantastic. It's, for some kids it's harder to um, pay attention for a long period of time, but also the work we do is very physical. So if I'm organizing their bedroom or a toy area, or whatever, it's their stuff. It's their stuff, so they are focused. And then 2, it's physical, so it's I think easier for them to focus. And then
Mm-hmm.
they feel special if they work with if somebody comes into their house that is an expert. It's not mom or dad, and we definitely work like along the positive aspect,
Mm-hmm.
not what can you get rid of. Usually when I work with a younger person in their bedroom, it's like, so you're 12 now. Do you think this looks like a 12-year-old room? No, I mean, I said, well, let's make it look like a 12-year-old room. What would you do to make it look like a 12-year-old room? And
Right.
then we work towards that aspect. And they get really into it, Now, what we do for the parents that are probably a little worried is that when we start, I say, okay, this is the rule. Mom's going to go, you and I are going to work together. Anything you don't want in your room, we're going to put out in the hallway, and then mom gets to look at it, because it's not going to leave the house without a parent.
Approval.
Yeah, a parent approval.
Approval. That's fantastic. And what I think it also does is, and you talked about it in the beginning, when you make them part of the process, you are teaching them structure. You're teaching them to be hands-on. You're teaching them to own up to what they want. And that's just part of growing up.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is
I mean,
wonderful.
that's the whole, the skill of organization, of being more organized, is something that anybody can learn. And if you're organized, that's great, but pass that skill on to your kids. So you need to give them the responsibility and let them practice, let it become part of their routine, in order that they can then use it, when they're a grown adult.
That's wonderful. Janet, as usual, you are a wealth of information. I am so glad to have had this conversation with you. Again, Janet Chisel from Basic Organization. You can look for her information below. And of course, I'm going to share with you all her resources. She has abundant resources on the subject that we just covered. Janet, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. It was nice to see you.
Take care. Bye.